Hello, my name's Joy Monkhouse. I'm from Coventry University and I teach illustration and graphics, and that was one of our students on illustration and animation BA honours, just to see us in. I'll say a little bit more about Dominic's work as I tell you my story, and I'd like to start at the beginning and just give you an overview of an ACA scheme and accreditation and the value that I think that's bringing to the current creative practice climate. What we've done is we've introduced a scheme some time ago, so I'll give you a quick whistle-stop tour of how I did that, look at the tests results, and then have a look at where we are now. So the start of my journey was 2012 when I established the School of Art and Design at Coventry University as an authorised test centre when I partnered with Prodigy Learning. And the reason we did that, as you all know, employability had to become embedded and part of our teaching everyday bread and butter. So we looked at ways that we could introduce that within creative practice. There was an additional challenge to recognise industry standard skills. So we looked to investigate how we would set up a scheme, and this is a quick recap of that scheme and the 4-year case study that then was a success. The initial way we set this up was I did lots of research with alumni, careers advisors, looked at job descriptions, and we realised there were a set number of digital capabilities that were becoming essential on job descriptions. So with Adobe software still being the main commonplace, widespread, industry standard suite of software, I looked at ways that we could enable a scheme that we could embed so that students could prove proficiency in those skills, and looked to develop a whole new suite of modules which would embed those and would be credit bearing. So the challenge with that was mapping the Adobe modules that we already had, the Adobe skills that we already taught, and mapping those ACA scheme learning outcomes to the learning outcomes for the module. Key tools that we needed, and I had to have approval, of course. This all had to go through academic approval boards. The form of assessment had to be approved. So there were some debates and discussions around this, but with access to Adobe CC and a whole pool of practicing hourly paid and part-time lecturers who are all in industry coming in and helping with this scheme, we could assure the university that we could deliver these skills to the level required to be able to get a pass at ACA level, with a view to, if you could reach the benchmark, you could also then additionally become accredited. We also had Moodle support resources, and we used Certiport, which was licensed through Prodigy. Additionally, since then, we've also added in geometrics, which has really helped in doing practice tests, and actually has helped, I think, improve the certification rates as well subsequently. And also collaboration with Prodigy as well as registry, and that was to ensure that the system was robust and that it was inclusive as well. So we had all the system in place, all the tools in place, and then we just had to take a leap of faith. And this is where it was getting very challenging, because it was a bit of a culture shock for an art school to suddenly be taking exams. This wasn't taken very well by the staff sometimes, you know, more daunted by that than the students who maybe hadn't taken tests since A-level. You know, they're commonly industry practices by portfolio, interviews, assessments, and dissertation, presentation, all of those traditional methods of assessment. We really had to assure people that they were going to be managed through this. So we took the leap. We did the trial for 4 years. Did it work? We took questionnaires at the beginning and the end of the exams, and we also measured student satisfaction. So the results then. The 4-year case study ran from 2012 to 2016, and we started with 720 students because they were being tested as part of an embedded employability module, which was an additional 10 credits to their degree. At first, in the first 1 or 2 weeks, students were very, very nervous, measuring their confidence of their ability to hit industry benchmark was interesting. That gradually increased, as well as their ability to not only pass the module at 40%, a standard assessment rate, but then we've gone towards, by 2015, 2016, there were now an average of 40+% students who were achieving accreditation. We're currently running at about 50-60% of students hit that 70% benchmark, and that's a first mark, let's face it. It has to be a good mark for them to be able to get accredited and walk away with a certificate. We did that right across the Adobe suite, using Certiport. We did Photoshop, and we also did Illustrator, InDesign, Premiere Pro, Dreamweaver, which we've since dropped, and we're constantly expanding the scheme. Based on those results, which then went towards the last year, the 4th year of that pilot, where we had rolled it out to 900 students per annum. And that's still going. So we do just under 1,000 students per annum, and it was about managing their expectations. They soon got a real taste for the exams. There was a healthy competition. It was a great teaching tool, in fact, for them to try and notch up their grade by using formative feedback, practice tests, doing trial runs. They were quite used to the idea that they could get strong positive results and they weren't so nervous. That all, of course, has helped feed into, it's just one of the things that Coventry did a number of different strands to approach employability, but had then seen much better results on destination of leavers surveys, and we're still currently running at one of the UK's top 10 Delhi survey stats. So the results worked from a stats point of view. It was tried and tested. 4-year pilot worked, and it still rolls on. My focus then went towards what else could I do with it. This was really interesting. It had gained a lot of interest in the school and beyond. We were then looking at how to widen the approach and access, and I was particularly interested in how to really engage students further, and experimentation, integration of digital capabilities, digital skill sets within creative disciplines particularly, and to look again at access and assessment. So this is the next phase really in the story. Around student experience, it is about student stories and their experience of this scheme. The one on the bottom left, this student was a graphic design graduate and said, I had 2 tests to complete and 2 rounds of interviews to get the job, but I already had done Adobe tests, so I handled it quite well, I think. You know, there was that air of confidence about being put on the spot and being able to perform and proving yourself, that proficiency. Experimentation, these 900 students, or just under 1,000 students per annum, were across university. So we were taking students from engineering, business school, as well as our own native art and design students into these employability modules, 10 credit bearing modules. What I was then interested in is the power that it could give to the art and design students within my own faculty, within my own suite of courses, who already had been given some of the fundamental art and design training, and how they could then use the digital capabilities that they'd been additionally given via certification, and see what they could then do with it in a very cross-disciplinary way. That's where you see the work that comes out through animation, for instance. The story that you saw at the beginning, Dominic's piece, which uses a huge crossover of software, traditional printmaking, as well as digital drawing, Premiere Pro filmmaking and animation skills. So it's this beauty of now being able to really bring digital capabilities to life. Adobe CC is given to all art and design students as they come into Coventry University, so we'd increase the access. Previously it was only in certain studios and certain IT labs, but now they all have their own personal CC cloud subscription. And because of the success of the pilot, the 4-year case study, I was able to then work with our disruptive media lab, because the university were open to fostering these sort of non-traditional approaches to assessment. I'm saying non-traditional, which is kind of a bit flipped, because exams were non-traditional to the art faculty. Exit interviews, also really interesting. It seemed that actually this form of assessment suited the creative disciplines. It was about problem solving at the end of the day, and that really suits creatives. So contrary to, you know, what people had thought maybe originally. Disruptive Media Lab, we increased and widened the offering by flipping 2 of the classes, 2 of the modules. In the middle we flipped completely. Another paper I did on that for the HEA, very interestingly, there was nothing in the results. So being taught face-to-face, ACA basic Adobe skills, to then ramp it up to a point where you could have a pop at getting accredited, we were achieving on par results with a flipped module, same as face-to-face. That's another story. We are always looking to learn through play. Basically, that's the approach we want to bring in. So again, this competition, this quizzes, the problem-solving approach to learning the software and putting it to use really seems to suit. So, the last stage I'm at now, testing digital currency. What's the value of this in the current creative industry climate? What's the added value that this accreditation may bring to students and graduates from an employability point of view, from a digital fluency point of view, and where can it take them, where can they take it? So the tests simulate creative problem-solving challenges, and the ACA Championship recognises the need for application via a real-world live brief. So this is about taking the best scores, as happens with the Microsoft and the Autodesk accreditations. It's a UK and Ireland-wide competition, and the best top highest scores get invited to London or to a full day, which is then not about you sitting in front of an online exam portal, but about how you apply the skills to a real world live brief. I also introduced test festivals, so they work outside of the employability modules, and they are one-off, really happening events over a week, giving extra people, extra students a chance to have a go, get involved, and invite charities in. We'll do something that's useful to them, maybe a poster or a leaflet, and let the students work on that with prizes and with the opportunity to then take it forward. It is about being put on the spot and how you then apply those skills. So you've got your piece of paper, you've got your CV, but can you really do what it says on the tin? Now, I've been at the other end of the desk. You know, my background's publishing, and I've been at the other end where you've had 80, 100 applicants, and they all say they're Uber users of Photoshop or whatever, and actually when it comes to it, they've kind of oversold it a bit. And so testing is becoming something they have to be able to show proficiency in very quickly. How do you do that? They have to jump through lots of hoops. So if anyone's looked at graduate recruitment processes recently, it's really quite frightening, where you might think if we were in a room here, we'd have, just to get here, we'd have gone through psychometric tests, situational judgment tests, then we'll all be doing some role play, then you may get invited back face-to-face for one-to-one interviews, then you'll have your skill set test. You know, it's frightening stuff. But actually, by doing exams and being put on the test, and by doing these performance events, by having to apply it in the moment, real time, it's helping to prepare them for that kind of process. And there is a resilience that they can build with that, because there's failure. You have to be able to learn to fail as well. Thrown in at the deep end is, part of being able to actually put all of those skills and capabilities to test. So you get certified, but we need to see those skills in creative practice. We need to see what that translates. It's not just about a stat. It's about, what does your portfolio look like? How do you apply that? And have you got those power skills? Can you use sheer grit and determination to get the job done and to really start applying those skills to real-time, real-world problems? Alumni and employers are still coming back to us and saying they still want to see portfolio and certification. So to have both, you're getting best of both worlds, really. It's about all those pluses. What else can you add? What else can you add all the time? Portfolio, percentages, personality, and online presence. So that's where we are now. It's about performance and personality, because you have a raft of this stuff and you've got your online portfolio and you're able to apply it and you've got your certifications. But digital fluency is now commonplace. We're talking about post-digital students being able to show proof of proficiency in real time. And what else does it make, what else do they have to make themselves stand out? Dominic stood out at New Designers last year. He got the One to Watch award for his animated piece, a very cross-disciplinary piece, as you've seen. Beautiful tale, storytelling, all of those skills are brought out through his digital capabilities, being able to deliver that. Is it worthwhile? What's the value that these accreditations give in current climate? What's the currency of this digital literacy? This is another good example. Taylor Sharp won the ACA Championship last year, so went down to London. We had a great day at the Design Museum, and I'm sure many of you are aware of the championship. There's a Microsoft Championship as well as an Adobe Championship. And Taylor went along and was briefed, along with all of the other students, on the day by a charity called Family Gateway. And this was a great brochure piece which really brought all of his skills to showcase his skills and his empathy for the target audience, being able to put that together in less than 4 hours, and was the UK winner, so therefore got an all expenses paid trip over to the States to compete in the world final. So this is a real incentive, and what a thing to put on your CV. Even for those that didn't win, the championships and the test festivals, the regional charity events that we're doing now in Coventry, are a real talking point for how people can use their skills and capabilities, that they often come back to me and say, they asked me about this piece in my portfolio, or talked about my certification and what we did with that. And just lastly, this is Taylor, who, as I say, went on to the States, and he says it's a qualification that's on his website that makes him a professional who has achieved above and beyond his degree. Everyone's looking for that bit extra, whether it's work experience, extra certification, extra digital capability. That's where its value is. That's its current value in design and creative industry. Taylor's just been invited back by Adobe to go and speak at the ACA Championship this year, to go and tell other students about his experience with ACA. So again, they're paying for him to go back to New York this time. So he's now full-time graphic designer and illustrator, and was a great winner. So his story speaks for itself, really. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions at all? No? Well, if you do want to know, yeah.
So I'm just curious about software using, because you seem very tied to Adobe.
Yes.
Are students able to use other applications outside of Adobe? I'm thinking about Painter or maybe some of the kind of 3D graphic.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, I did. So it's
Painter,
not. Yeah,
3D graphics programs like Mudblock
definitely.
and stuff,
so Adobe is still very much, a common industry standard. However, we don't believe in totally a proprietary set of software for our students, and we've got a games art, illustration degree, as well as animation, illustration and graphics, fine art and illustration. And they're using everything from Procreate on tablet through to, 3ds Max and Maya. They've got a whole plethora of software, but that doesn't always offer the ability to show your proficiency quickly. You probably have to be tested by your employer, prospective employer at interview. I would welcome more schemes. I would welcome more people being able to offer a benchmark for students, for anybody really practicing in creative industry, to say, I've hit that level, and open it out over a whole spectrum of software. Adobe have supported the ACA scheme, so that's what we bought into originally. Okay, well, that's good timing. Yep, okay, if you want to ask me any questions at all, just come and grab me. I'm about the rest of the day and the evening. Happy to talk to you about how I managed to convince people how to embed the system at Coventry.
Thank you, Joy. Can we give Joy a big round of applause?